Hello, and welcome to this quick little video on a few little corrections and observations from our testing lecture on our dep node. Essentially, there's one little error that I spotted tonight when I was looking at this after work. Again, don't be too harsh on me on the comments. I'm doing this normally quite late in the evenings. Nothing last night. It was about 12 o'clock, so I was I was going to record another video, and I realized I was babbling like an idiot because I was just so tired. So that is my beg for mercy, please. But one thing that was quite glaringly obvious to me when I started editing the video today, this evening, was that obviously we're testing the equality operator, but we're not testing that. So what we need to do is we need to go Control, Shift, and Alt, select all of our commas, and then just go equal. And now what we need to do is we need to select all our equals and go assert true, because we want all of these to pass back true from what we're getting from them. And we can even just check that we get a false representation as well. So let's put one more in, and we'll put a false in. And we'll check that sphere path equals joint. Let's go with this one, joint path. Actually, we can even just do joint. Let's go for that. Let's do the objects themselves. So now we have at least a check for true and a check for false. Okay, perfect. So now the next error, well, not really an error, but more of my forgetful mind, was that we don't actually need to assert equal with none. We actually have an assert for that. So we can actually just type in is and then none. And if you can see, we actually have quite a few there of these. So let's use the is not none, or is none, sorry. Because essentially we're just adding code, and for the sake of it, we might as well actually just use the built-in functionality. So assert is none, brilliant. Let's press Control S, Control A, Control C. Now we're going to jump into Maya. I'm going to press Control A, Control V, and now Control A and Control Enter. Let's see, we'll check our tests again. Brilliant. They've all run. Okay, that's perfect. Now, while we're in here, we could also actually use our testing module that we created. So let's go back. If we remember yesterday in my brain. But if we remember in our previous lecture, we created our get test output and test all modules. So let's try and run this and see what information we now get back from our modules. So this is functionality within utils and testing. So modules, utils, testing. Perfect, here we go. Let's see what output we get here. Amazing. So now we're running all of our tests. We're getting a bit of a cleaner output. This is why we made this setup. We're getting all of our dots to show all of the tests have run, but we're now getting a bit more information. We're getting the 26 tests have run. They've got all passes, no errors, failures, and skipped items. Perfect. Okay, and now the last thing I wanted to talk about here now was essentially what all of these little arrows mean on the side. So within PyCharm, you can run tests for any modules or any Python libraries that are loaded. So for example, I do a bit of work in Django, and an amazing library. If you haven't already looked at it, maybe go and have a look at it. The testing setup and testing tutorials for Django are just second to none. And essentially when you have just Python libraries loaded, you can actually just run tests straight from the IDE. Let's try and do it here. Well, annoyingly, we can't really do it here because we're kind of cheating what we're doing here. So we're loading in the library for our autocomplete, but we can't create Maya objects. This is obviously not a 3D software. This is just an IDE. So even although we can run Python and we can assert different Python artifacts, we cannot assert items that are 3D because we can't build anything. So for example, in this test module, we're doing specific Maya commands-based functionality, or we're using Maya commands-based functionality. But if we jump over to the testing that we created for test path, we didn't actually import anything that would cause any difficulty for Maya. So within your math modules, your string modules, your path modules, any modules that are just using Python that you write, this is a really good reason just to try and make sure that those tests can all be run independently, because you can just run them within this IDE itself. So let's run our tests. What we can do, we can either run them from the base class, or you can run them right at the bottom from our if name equals main. But we're going to run them from up here. Let's see what happens. Awesome. So we ran 4 tests in 0.003 seconds. And we got no errors. Let's see, it's awesome, like I said. But again, let's see what happens if we add in an error. Let's add in a P so that now our expected result will be wrong. Well, actually, we're getting the namespace here, so no, it won't. So let's add in a P here. And now let's run that test by itself. And we've got a failure. So, and this is actually where PyCharm is pretty cool. See, the Python IDE, the Python script editor isn't brilliant. It doesn't give you this kind of information, but this is where PyCharm is a little bit better. This is what it expected. And the actual was this. So actually, this shows that we're kind of putting our commands the wrong way around, which we can move around. But again, isn't so important to us because we're actually getting the assertion error and the incorrect information here. So we can just look and go, there's a P somewhere it shouldn't be. And go, yep, there it is. Okay, brilliant. So that's just one last thing I wanted to mention about how cool testing is in Python and within the PyCharm IDE. But that's everything. So thank you. And I hope those corrections all made sense to you about why we're doing that. Mainly within our quality operator test, we wanted to make sure we were testing this because that is the functionality that we are using when we use this dunder method. This is testing that when this operator is called, that we are then comparing these items, and we're overriding that functionality right here with our tests. So that was the main reason that it's just a silly mistake by myself and not reading and checking my code. But also, this is probably another good piece of life advice for you when you're writing your tests in the future. When you do write a heavy amount of tests, like there are some days where I've written probably well over 100 tests, just where I've been, refactoring, writing new code, writing new modules. And it's definitely best to go over them for over the next 2 days. Maybe make sure you come back to them. Don't just write them all and then leave them, because you will have done things like this where they will, they'll be syntactically correct and they will pass, but they will be logically flawed. So these would all pass, but they're not actually testing the equality operator. They were actually just testing the objects within the scene. And what we're wanting to do is obviously test this equality operator, but because my logic was wrong when we wrote these tests, what we did is we made a silly mistake and we wouldn't have actually tested our equality operator. So it would have then come down to us finding out that there was an error in the future when we were writing our own code. Our code won't always be perfect, and you will always find errors like this, but it's just about going back and refactoring them. So, and you'll get to a part of your career where obviously you've written so many tests and things that, things like this you just don't care about because you'll fix them or find them. But yeah, I think that's probably my best piece of advice. Don't care. Just do better. If you make a mistake, who cares? You fix it, get on with it. If people care so much, then, glass houses, come on. So cool. I think that's everything. Have a great night, guys. Great day wherever you are in the world. And we will catch up on the next series of lectures on the DAG node setup and testing.